Welcome back to the channel The Coin Empire, the place where hidden treasures and everyday pocket change come to life and where ordinary coins can turn into extraordinary stories worth millions. And today we are diving into one of the most fascinating possibilities in modern coin collecting, the mysterious and potentially incredibly valuable 2007 1-cent coin from the United States. A coin that most people would normally ignore or toss into a jar without a second thought, but which under the right circumstances, errors, and rare minting mistakes could become one of the most talked about pennies among collectors, with rumors and speculations suggesting that certain unique error examples could reach values as high as $126 million in the collector market. And while that number may sound unbelievable at first, the world of numismatics has repeatedly proven that rare mint errors, unusual production mistakes, and extremely limited varieties can transform even the most common looking coins into objects of intense interest and staggering value, and the 2007 penny is a perfect example of how the smallest manufacturing detail can make a coin stand out from millions of others. Because this coin was struck at the Denver Mint, as indicated by the small D mint mark located just below the date on the obverse side, featuring the iconic portrait of Abraham Lincoln that has appeared on the United States 1-cent coins since 1909. And in 2007 the design still included the familiar Lincoln Memorial on the reverse side, a design that had been used since 1959 and remained in circulation until the bicentennial redesigns began in 2009, meaning the 2007 penny represents one of the final years of the classic Lincoln Memorial reverse, making it already interesting to collectors who focus on the end of design eras. But what truly makes the coin exciting are the possible minting errors and striking anomalies that can occur during production, because the process of creating billions of coins every year involves massive presses, high-speed striking machines, metal planchets moving through automated systems, and human oversight, and within this complex system even the smallest malfunction can create a rare and valuable error coin. And collectors who study the 2007 penny often search for dramatic mint errors such as double die varieties where the design elements appear duplicated due to misalignment during the creation of the die itself, and if a doubled die were discovered on the date, the word liberty, or the motto "I in God we trust," it could immediately draw significant attention from collectors, especially if the doubling is strong and clearly visible without magnification, because dramatic double dies are among the most famous and desirable types of mint errors in American coinage history. And another possible reason a 2007 penny could command an extraordinary value is the presence of an off-center strike, which happens when the blank planchet is not perfectly aligned inside the coin press at the moment it is struck, causing part of the design to be missing while the rest is pushed toward one side of the coin. And if such an off-center strike also retains the full date and mint mark while showing a dramatic shift in the design, collectors may consider it highly desirable, particularly if the coin also shows strong detail and minimal damage from circulation. And then there are broad strike errors which occur when the retaining collar that normally keeps the coin's shape fails to hold the planchet properly during striking, allowing the metal to expand outward and produce a larger, flatter coin with distorted edges. And broad-struck pennies from the Denver Mint in 2007 could easily capture the imagination of collectors who enjoy unusual shapes and minting accidents. But perhaps one of the most fascinating possibilities for the 2007 penny involves planchet errors, which occur before the coin is even struck, because the blank metal discs used for pennies are normally made of a copper-plated zinc composition. But occasionally a planchet intended for another denomination or another metal composition could accidentally be fed into the press, producing a penny struck on the wrong type of metal blank. And such wrong planchet errors can become extremely valuable because they demonstrate a clear and dramatic breakdown in the mint's quality control process. And if a 2007 penny were ever discovered struck on a planchet intended for another coin such as a dime, a foreign coin blank, or even an experimental metal composition, the rarity of that piece could skyrocket instantly, potentially leading to auction battles among collectors and investors who recognize the historical significance of such an unusual mint mistake. And another intriguing category of errors involves die cracks and die breaks which form when the steel dies used to strike coins begin to wear out or fracture after producing millions of coins under enormous pressure. And when those cracks appear on the coin's surface as raised lines or unusual shapes, they create distinctive varieties that collectors often catalog and pursue, especially when the cracks become dramatic enough to form large raised blobs of metal, sometimes called cut errors, where a portion of the die has broken away completely, leaving a smooth raised area on the coin where the design should normally appear. And these cut errors can transform an otherwise common penny into a conversation piece that collectors actively seek out. And speaking of die damage, another type of error that can affect the 2070 penny is die clash, which occurs when the obverse and reverse dies strike each other without a planchet between them, leaving faint impressions of the opposite design elements on each die. And when those clashed dies continue striking coins, the ghost-like outlines of parts of the reverse design may appear on the obverse side or vice versa, creating subtle but fascinating features that experienced collectors love to identify and document. And sometimes these clashed dies can lead to unusual distortions or overlapping design fragments that make the coin visually striking and historically interesting. And beyond these mechanical errors, there is also the possibility of striking errors, such as multiple strikes where the coin is struck more than once while shifting position between strikes, creating overlapping images of the design that appear almost like a shadow or echo of the original portrait and lettering. And when such dramatic multiple strike errors occur, they can produce coins that look completely different from standard circulation pieces, making them extremely appealing to collectors who specialize in mint mistakes. And then there are rare cases of coins being struck through foreign materials such as grease, cloth fibers, metal shavings, or other debris that becomes trapped between the die and the planchet during the striking process, leaving unusual textures, missing design areas, or mysterious patterns embedded into the coin's surface. And these struck-through errors can create one-of-a-kind pieces that no other coin in the world exactly matches, increasing their desirability among collectors who appreciate unique minting anomalies. And of course, the condition of the coin also plays a massive role in determining its potential value, because even the rarest error coin becomes more desirable when it is preserved in pristine uncirculated condition with strong luster and minimal wear. And collectors often submit such coins to professional grading services where experts examine the coin under magnification, confirm the authenticity of the error, and assign a grade that reflects its condition. And once encapsulated in a protective holder with an official grade and description, the coin can gain credibility in the marketplace and attract serious buyers who trust the grading process. And in the case of an extraordinary 2070 penny with a dramatic and well-documented mint error, the value could climb rapidly as collectors compete to own a piece that represents a rare moment in minting history. Because numismatics is not only about metal and design but also about stories, accidents, and the unpredictable events that occur inside the mint when billions of coins are being produced every year. And every once in a while those events create something remarkable, something that escapes into circulation and waits patiently to be discovered by someone who pays attention to the details, someone who looks closely at a simple penny and realizes it might be far more than just 1 cent. And that is why coin collectors around the world continue to search through rolls of pennies, jars of spare change, and old collections, hoping to find that one incredible piece that changes everything. And the 2070 1-cent coin reminds us that even modern coins can hide incredible secrets, because while most examples are worth only their face value. Next, 2023 1-cent coin. Today we are exploring one of the most fascinating modern coins that collectors are beginning to talk about with growing excitement, the 2023 1-cent coin from the United States. A coin that millions of people have already seen in their daily transactions, yet very few realize that under the right circumstances this small copper-colored coin could potentially be worth an astonishing $120 million because of rare minting errors, unusual production mistakes, and extremely unlikely combinations of defects that transform an ordinary penny into a historic numismatic treasure. And while it might sound unbelievable that a modern coin could ever reach such an incredible value, the truth is that coin collecting history is filled with examples where small minting accidents created coins so rare and unusual that collectors around the world competed fiercely to own them. And the 2023 1-cent coin represents a new chapter in that ongoing story of discovery and possibility, because every year the United States Mint produces billions of pennies for circulation, and in the process of striking such massive quantities, even the most advanced machinery and strict quality control cannot completely eliminate the chance of mistakes. And those mistakes are exactly what collectors search for when they examine coins carefully, looking for the tiny differences that separate a normal penny from one that could become the centerpiece of a valuable collection. And the 2023 penny continues the long tradition of the Lincoln cent design, which first appeared in 1909 to honor President Abraham Lincoln, making it one of the most recognizable coins in American history, with Lincoln's portrait on the front of the coin and the Union Shield design on the reverse, which has been used since 2010, symbolizing the unity and strength of the United States. And although billions of these coins were produced in 2023 at different mint facilities, a small number of them may contain errors that collectors consider extremely desirable, especially when those errors occur during the complex minting process where planchets are prepared, dies are engraved, and powerful presses strike each coin with tremendous pressure. And one of the most exciting possibilities for the 2023 penny involves double die errors, which occur during the creation of the coin's die when the design is accidentally impressed more than once in slightly different positions, causing the final coin struck by that die to show noticeable doubling in the lettering, the date, or even parts of Lincoln's portrait. And when such doubling is strong enough to be seen with the naked eye, it immediately attracts attention among collectors because it indicates that the die itself carries the error, meaning every coin produced from that die could display the same unusual feature, making those coins part of a recognized variety that collectors may pursue for years. And another dramatic type of error that could make a 2023 penny extremely valuable is an off-center strike, which happens when the blank planchet is not perfectly aligned in the coining press at the moment the dies strike it, resulting in a coin where part of the design is missing while the rest appears shifted toward one side, and if the off-center strike is large but still leaves the full date visible, collectors often consider it particularly attractive because the coin clearly shows the minting mistake while still preserving the information that identifies when the coin was produced. And then there are broad strike errors which occur when the collar that normally holds the coin in place during striking fails to contain the metal, allowing the coin to expand outward and produce a wider, flatter shape with distorted edges, and broad-struck pennies can look dramatically different from normal coins, immediately catching the eye of collectors who enjoy unusual mint products that reveal how the minting machinery works when something goes wrong. And among the most intriguing possibilities for a 2023 penny is the chance of a wrong planchet error where the coin is struck on a blank intended for another denomination or even another country's coinage, because the mint handles many different types of planchets, and occasionally a blank of the wrong size or metal composition may enter the press accidentally, creating a coin that looks completely different in color, weight, or diameter compared to normal pennies. And when such a coin is authenticated, it becomes a rare and fascinating artifact of the minting process, often commanding very high prices at auctions because collectors know that such errors are extremely difficult to produce and even harder to find, and sometimes a penny might be struck on a planchet made for a dime or another coin, resulting in a smaller coin with parts of the design missing due to the limited space available on the blank. And this type of error demonstrates how a simple mechanical mix-up inside the mint can create a collectible rarity that no one intended to produce. And beyond planchet mistakes, there are also die cracks and die breaks that can form when the steel dies used to strike coins develop fractures after producing millions of impressions, and these cracks appear on the coin as raised lines or unusual shapes that collectors carefully study and catalog. And when a crack grows large enough to break away a portion of the die, it can produce what collectors call a cut error, where a blob of raised metal appears on the coin in the area where the broken piece of the die used to be, creating a dramatic visual feature that immediately signals that the coin was struck with a damaged die. And coins with large cut errors are often saved by collectors because they represent a specific moment in the life of a die when the mint continued using it despite the damage, allowing a small number of unusual coins to enter circulation before the die was replaced. And another type of fascinating mint mistake that could affect the 2023 penny is a die clash, which occurs when the obverse and reverse dies strike each other without a planchet between them, transferring parts of the design from one die onto the other. And when those dies continue striking coins, the transferred design elements appear faintly on the coins themselves. creating ghost-like outlines of the opposite side's design that collectors love to discover because they reveal a hidden story about the minting process. And sometimes these clash dies create patterns that look almost like secret images within the coin, making each example unique and interesting to study under magnification. And collectors also search for multiple strike errors where a coin is struck more than once by the dies while shifting position between strikes, producing overlapping images of Lincoln's portrait or duplicated lettering that can make the coin appear almost surreal. And when the second strike occurs at a different angle or position, the coin may display dramatic distortions that transform it into a striking example of a minting accident. And then there are struck-through errors which occur when foreign materials such as grease, cloth fibers, or tiny metal fragments becomes trapped between the die and the planchet during striking, preventing part of the design from being fully impressed into the coin and leaving behind unusual textures or missing details that collectors find fascinating because they represent a snapshot of what was happening inside the mint at the exact moment the coin was created. And sometimes these struck-through errors produce patterns that look like mysterious shapes or rough surfaces embedded in the coin, making each piece completely unique and impossible to duplicate. And another possibility that excites collectors is the chance of a rotated die error where the reverse design of the coin is not aligned properly with the obverse, meaning that when the coin is flipped vertically, the reverse appears rotated to one side instead of being perfectly upright. And while small rotations can occur occasionally without attracting much attention, large rotations of 90 degrees or even 180 degrees can make a coin highly collectible because they demonstrate a clear misalignment within the coining press that escaped detection during production. And along with these striking errors, there are also rare cases of partial collar errors where the coin is only partially held by the collar during striking, resulting in a coin that has a normal edge on one side but an expanded or distorted edge on the other, giving it an unusual shape that immediately stands out when compared to normal pennies. And collectors who specialize in mint errors often examine thousands of coins searching for exactly these kinds of abnormalities, knowing that even a single rare example could be worth a significant amount of money. And of course, the condition of the coin also plays an important role in determining its ultimate value, because a rare error preserved in pristine mint state condition with strong original luster will almost always command a higher price than a heavily worn example that has spent years in circulation. And this is why many collectors carefully store their discoveries in protective holders and submit them to professional grading services where experts evaluate the coin's authenticity. Next, 1974 D1-cent coin. Today we are diving into one of the most fascinating possibilities in the world of coin collecting, the mysterious and incredibly valuable 1974 D1-cent coin from the United States that some collectors believe could be worth as much as $110 million because of rare minting errors, unusual production mistakes, and the incredible circumstances that can transform a simple copper penny into a legendary collectible that every coin hunter dreams of discovering in an old jar of change or even in their own wallet. And the story begins in 1974 at the Denver Mint, where millions of Lincoln 1-cent coins were produced bearing the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the front and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, a design that had been used since 1959 and was common across American pennies for decades. But what makes the 1974 D penny fascinating is not its normal appearance but the rare and mysterious variations that can occur when something goes wrong during the minting process. Because in the world of coin collecting, mistakes are not flaws but treasures, and sometimes those mistakes can turn a coin worth 1 cent into something that collectors would pay thousands, hundreds of thousands, or even millions to obtain if the circumstances are rare enough and the story behind the coin captures the imagination of the numismatic world. And the 1974 D penny has long been surrounded by speculation because the early 1970s were a time of experimentation and transition for the United States Mint, especially when it came to the metal composition of the penny itself, since rising copper prices were forcing officials to search for alternative materials that could reduce production costs. And during that period the mint experimented with aluminum cents, unusual planchets, and test strikes that were never meant to enter circulation but sometimes did through mistakes or misplacement, creating legends among collectors that a few unusual coins might still exist in private hands waiting to be discovered. And when collectors talk about the possibility of a 1974 D penny worth $110 million, they are usually referring to a perfect storm of rarity involving multiple types of minting errors combined into one extraordinary coin that could theoretically exist if the right mistakes happened together during production. And one of the most famous possibilities is a transitional error where a coin is struck using a metal composition that was never officially released to the public. And because the United States Mint experimented with aluminum pennies in 1974, there has always been speculation that a Denver Mint version might exist, even though most known aluminum test cents were produced in Philadelphia and were supposed to be destroyed or returned to the government. But if a 1974 D aluminum cent were ever discovered, it would immediately become one of the rarest coins in American history because it would represent a secret moment in the Mint's experimentation process that escaped into circulation. And collectors know that when an experimental coin appears unexpectedly, the value can skyrocket to unimaginable levels because museums, investors, and private collectors all compete to own a piece of history that was never meant to exist outside official archives. And another possible explanation for the legendary value of a 1974 D penny involves dramatic double die errors which occur when the die used to strike the coin receives an accidental double impression during manufacturing, causing the letters, numbers, and design elements to appear doubled on the final coin. And while minor doubling is sometimes seen on pennies, the rare and dramatic examples where the date 1974 or the word liberty appears strongly doubled can make collectors extremely excited because these coins are proof that something unusual happened during the die preparation stage. And when a double die coin is discovered in pristine condition, the value can multiply rapidly. Since collectors want the clearest and most dramatic examples of such errors. And then there is the possibility of an off-metal strike where a penny is accidentally struck on a blank intended for another denomination, such as a dime or foreign coin planchet. And if a 1974 D penny were ever found struck on an unusual metal blank, the weight, color, and appearance would immediately reveal that something extraordinary had happened inside the minting presses, and collectors would analyze the coin carefully using microscopes, weight scales, and metallurgical tests to confirm its authenticity, and once confirmed, the rarity of such an error would cause a frenzy in the coin collecting world because genuine off-metal strikes are incredibly difficult to create intentionally and almost impossible to fake convincingly. Which means the few real examples that exist are highly prized by collectors who specialize in minting anomalies. And another fascinating error possibility involves a broad strike coin, which occurs when the collar that normally holds the coin in place during striking fails to function properly, allowing the metal to spread outward, producing a coin that looks wider and flatter than normal with distorted edges and design elements stretching toward the rim. And while broad strike errors alone may not be worth millions, the combination of a broad strike with other rare errors such as doubling or unusual metal composition could create a coin that collectors would consider a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. And then there are die cracks, cuds, and die breaks which occur when the metal die used to stamp coins begins to fracture after striking thousands or millions of coins, and these cracks can leave raised lines or lumps on the coin's surface that reveal the moment when the die was beginning to fail, and some collectors specialize in tracking these die states to reconstruct the life cycle of a specific die used by the mint. But if a dramatic die break occurred on a 1974 D penny, creating a large raised cut along the rim combined with other unusual characteristics, the uniqueness of the coin could push its value higher and higher in competitive auctions where collectors are always searching for something nobody else owns. And yet another possibility that excites collectors is the chance of a wrong mint mark variety where the Denver Mint Mark D might appear misaligned, doubled, or punched incorrectly into the die before production began, since in the early 1970s, mint marks were still manually punched into working dies rather than being included during the master die creation process, which meant human error could occasionally produce strange mint mark placements, or even multiple impressions of the letter D appearing on the same coin. And when collectors encounter such anomalies, they carefully document them because they reveal the human side of coin production, where tiny mistakes made by mint workers decades ago can become treasures for collectors today. And the legendary value figure of $110 million is often used to capture the imagination of viewers and collectors because it represents the idea that if the rarest possible combination of errors were found on a single 1974 D penny, such as an experimental metal composition, a dramatic doubled die, an off-center strike, and a pristine mint state condition all at once, then the coin would become so unique that its value would no longer follow normal price guides but instead depend entirely on how much the most passionate collector in the world is willing to pay to own it, and history has shown that collectors can pay astonishing prices for coins that represent historical mysteries or singular examples. And while most 1974 D pennies are worth only a few cents or maybe a few dollars in uncirculated condition, there is always the thrilling possibility that somewhere in circulation a rare error example still exists waiting to be discovered, perhaps hiding in a forgotten piggy bank, a jar of old change, or a coin roll stored away decades ago by someone who never realized the potential treasure they were saving. And this is what makes coin collecting so exciting, because every coin carries the possibility of history, rarity, and unexpected value, and when collectors examine their coins they often look closely at the date, the mint mark, the lettering, and the edges, searching for unusual shapes, doubling, misalignment, or differences in color and weight that could signal a rare minting error. And sometimes these discoveries happen in the most surprising ways, such as a child noticing something strange about a penny, or a collector opening a bank roll and spotting a coin that looks slightly different from the others. And when that moment happens, the coin is usually sent to a professional grading service where experts analyze it carefully to confirm its authenticity and assign it a grade based on its condition. And once certified, a rare error coin can appear in major auctions where collectors from around the world compete for the chance to own a unique piece of minting history. Next, 2001 cent coin. Today we are diving into one of the most fascinating modern coins that has captured the curiosity of collectors and treasure hunters everywhere, the 2001 cent coin from the United States, a coin that millions of people have handled, spent, or tossed into jars without a second thought. Yet under the right circumstances, this small copper-colored coin could become one of the most valuable coins in the world, with some extraordinary examples rumored to reach values as high as $115 million because of rare minting errors, unusual production mistakes, and extremely uncommon combinations of defects that make certain coins stand out dramatically from the billions that were produced during that year. And to truly understand why a 2000 penny could ever become so valuable, we need to look at the fascinating world of coin production and the many ways things can go unexpectedly wrong inside a mint where billions of coins are being struck every year with powerful machines operating at incredible speed, because even with advanced technology and strict quality control, the process of creating coins is still vulnerable to small mechanical issues, die imperfections, planchet problems, and alignment errors that occasionally escape detection and enter circulation. And when collectors discover those unusual pieces, they often become highly sought after because they represent rare moments when the minting process created something unique that was never intended to exist. And the 2001 cent coin is especially interesting because it was produced during a time when the United States Mint was striking enormous numbers of pennies for everyday commerce, meaning the chances of rare minting mistakes occurring within such a massive production run are always present, and this coin features the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse side, a design that has appeared on the penny since 1909 and has become one of the most recognizable coin images in the world, while the reverse side displays the Lincoln Memorial design that was used from 1959 until 2008. Making the year 2000 penny part of the long-running Lincoln Memorial series that many collectors enjoy studying for varieties, errors, and unique features that can dramatically increase a coin's value. And one of the most exciting possibilities for the 2000 penny involves double die errors, which occur during the creation of the dies used to strike coins when the design is accidentally impressed more than once at slightly different angles, causing the final coins produced by that die to show visible doubling in the letters, numbers, or other design elements. And collectors carefully examine areas such as the date, the word liberty, and the motto "I in God we trust," because these parts of the coin often reveal the most noticeable doubling when a doubled die is present. And if a strong doubled die variety were discovered on a 2000 penny, it could quickly become one of the most famous coins of the modern era, drawing attention from collectors around the world who appreciate dramatic minting anomalies that clearly show the complexity of the die creation process. And another major category of valuable errors involves off-center strikes, which happen when the blank metal planchet is not positioned correctly inside the coin press at the moment it is struck by the dies, resulting in a coin where part of the design is missing and the rest appears shifted toward one side. And when such an off-center error occurs while still leaving the date visible, collectors often consider the coin extremely desirable because it provides clear evidence of the minting mistake while still allowing the coin to be identified by its year. And the larger the off-center shift, the more dramatic the coin appears, sometimes leaving large blank areas of metal that make the coin instantly recognizable as an error piece. And then there are broad strike errors which occur when the retaining collar that normally surrounds the coin during striking fails to hold the planchet in place, allowing the metal to expand outward under the pressure of the dies and producing a coin that is wider and flatter than normal with distorted edges. And broad-struck pennies can look surprisingly different from standard coins, making them fascinating examples of how the minting machinery behaves when one of its key components does not function properly. And another exciting possibility for a valuable 2000 penny involves wrong planchet errors, where a coin is struck on a blank intended for a completely different denomination or even a different country's coinage. Because the mint handles many types of planchets during production, and occasionally a blank meant for another coin can accidentally enter the press used for pennies, creating a coin with an unusual size, weight, or metal composition that immediately stands out to collectors who carefully study their coins. And when such wrong planchet errors are authenticated, they often become extremely valuable because they demonstrate a clear breakdown in the mint's sorting and feeding systems. And some examples in the past have sold for astonishing prices because collectors understand how rare it is for such mistakes to escape the mint's quality control procedures. And beyond planchet mix-ups, there are also die cracks and die breaks that can develop after a die has struck millions of coins under immense pressure, causing tiny fractures to appear in the steel surface that eventually show up on coins as raised lines or irregular shapes. And when these cracks grow larger, they can lead to dramatic cut errors where a piece of the die actually breaks away, leaving a raised blob of metal on the coin where part of the design should normally appear. And these cut errors are often dramatic and easy to recognize, making them highly collectible because they capture a moment when the mint continued using a damaged die long enough for a small number of unusual coins to be produced before the die was finally replaced. And collectors also search for die clash errors, which occur when the obverse and reverse dies strike each other without a planchet between them, transferring parts of the design from one die to the other and causing faint outlines of the opposite design to appear on the coins struck afterward, creating ghost-like shapes or mysterious patterns that can be seen under careful examination. And these clash dies tell an interesting story about the minting process because they reveal that the machinery briefly operated without a planchet in place, allowing the dies to collide directly with each other and exchange impressions that later show up on coins as unusual design fragments. And another category of fascinating mint mistakes includes multiple strike errors, where a coin is struck more than once while shifting position between strikes, producing overlapping images of Lincoln's portrait or duplicated lettering that give the coin a distorted and dramatic appearance unlike anything seen on normal coins. And when such multiple strikes occur with large shifts between impressions, the coin can look almost abstract, turning a simple penny into a remarkable example of minting chaos that collectors find incredibly appealing. And struck-through errors are also possible when foreign materials such as grease, cloth fibers, or metal shavings becomes trapped between the die and the planchet during striking, preventing part of the design from being fully transferred onto the coin and leaving unusual textures or blank areas that mark the spot where the obstruction blocked the pressure of the die. And these errors can create fascinating patterns that make each coin unique because the foreign material responsible for the error is rarely identical from one coin to another. And another intriguing possibility involves rotated die errors, where the reverse design of the coin is misaligned relative to the obverse, so when the coin is flipped vertically, the reverse appears rotated to the side rather than upright. And while small rotations may go unnoticed by many people, large rotations of 90 degrees or even 180 degrees can turn a coin into a sought-after variety that collectors actively hunt for. and partial collar errors are yet another way a 2000 penny could become unusual, occurring when the coin is only partially held by the collar during striking so that part of the edge forms normally, while another section expands outward, creating a coin with a strange shape that instantly reveals something went wrong during production. Last 1981 1-cent coin. Today we are exploring one of the most fascinating possibilities in the world of coin collecting, the mysterious 1981 1-cent United States coin that some collectors believe could be worth as much as $105 million because of rare minting errors, unexpected production mistakes, and unusual historical circumstances that can transform a simple penny into an object of incredible value and fascination. And at first glance, the 1981 penny might look completely ordinary with the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the front and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, a design that had been part of American coinage since 1959 and was seen by millions of people every day in their change. But what most people do not realize is that behind the scenes, the year 1981 was an extremely interesting time for the United States Mint because it was a period when the composition of the penny was about to change forever, and this moment in history created the perfect conditions for unusual coins, rare transitional varieties, and surprising minting mistakes that collectors still search for decades later. And in order to understand why a 1981 penny could theoretically reach a value as extraordinary as $105 million, we first need to understand the situation the mint was facing during that time, because the price of copper had been rising steadily throughout the late 1970s and early 1980s, and the government realized that producing pennies made mostly of copper was becoming too expensive compared to their face value. And this meant the mint had to experiment with new metal compositions that would reduce costs while still allowing the coins to function properly in vending machines and circulation. And during these experiments, different metal planchets were tested and production methods were carefully studied. And whenever a major change like this happens, there is always the possibility that a few experimental coins or transitional errors could escape into circulation accidentally, creating the kind of rare and mysterious pieces that collectors dream of discovering. And one of the most exciting possibilities involving the 1981 penny is a transitional composition error, where a coin might be struck on a planchet intended for a different year or a different metal mixture than what was officially released to the public. Because in 1982 the United States Mint switched from the traditional bronze composition of 95% copper to a copper-plated zinc planchet. That was much cheaper to produce. And since this transition happened so close to the year 1981, there has always been speculation among collectors that a few experimental zinc planchets or unusual metal blanks could have been struck with 1981 dies either accidentally or during testing. And if such a coin were ever discovered and verified by professional numismatic experts, it would immediately become one of the rarest transitional error coins in American history, and collectors know that. Transitional errors are among the most valuable types of coins because they represent a moment of change in minting history and often exist in extremely small numbers, sometimes only one or two examples known to exist, and when rarity reaches that level, the value of the coin can become almost impossible to predict because collectors, museums, and investors compete fiercely to obtain something that nobody else can easily find or duplicate. And another fascinating possibility that can make a 1981 penny incredibly valuable is the presence of a dramatic double die error, which occurs when the die used to strike the coin receives multiple impressions during its creation that are slightly misaligned, causing the letters, numbers, and design elements on the final coin to appear doubled or even tripled in some cases. And when this type of error is strong and clearly visible, it becomes extremely desirable among collectors because it represents a flaw in the die manufacturing process rather than a simple strike error, meaning every coin struck by that particular die could carry the same distinctive doubling. And if a dramatic doubled die were discovered on a 1981 penny with strong doubling visible on the date, the word liberty, or the motto "I in God we trust," it would instantly attract attention from collectors who specialize in error coins and die varieties. And these collectors often compete to own the finest known example of such a variety, especially if the coin remains in uncirculated condition with its original mint luster shining brightly as it did the moment it left the press. And the condition of a coin is another crucial factor that can influence its value dramatically, because coins that remain perfectly preserved without wear, scratches, or environmental damage are much rarer than those that circulated for decades in everyday commerce. And when a rare error coin is also found in near perfect condition, the value can rise exponentially because collectors know that finding another example in the same state of preservation may be almost impossible. And beyond doubled dies, there are also other striking errors that could make a 1981 penny extremely valuable, such as off-center strikes where the coin is not properly aligned between the dies during the striking process, causing the design to appear shifted toward one side while leaving a blank crescent-shaped area on the opposite side of the coin, and these off-center errors can vary from small misalignments to dramatic strikes where half of the design is missing entirely. And while minor off-center coins are relatively common among error collectors, the rare examples where the date and mint mark remain visible while the strike is dramatically misaligned are considered especially desirable because they preserve the identity of the coin while showcasing a clear production mistake. And another fascinating possibility involves a coin being struck on the wrong planchet entirely, which means the blank piece of metal intended for one denomination accidentally ends up being struck by the dies meant for another denomination. And if a 1981 penny were ever discovered struck on a dime planchet, a foreign coin blank, or another unusual metal disc, it would immediately become a spectacular error that collectors would analyze carefully to confirm its authenticity. And once authenticated, such a coin could achieve extraordinary auction results because genuine wrong planchet errors are extremely difficult to fake and represent rare moments when the minting process allowed two completely different coin types to collide in an unexpected way. And the excitement surrounding these possibilities is what fuels the legend of a $105 million 1981 penny, because collectors understand that if the rarest combination of errors were ever discovered on a single coin, such as an experimental composition, a dramatic doubled die, a significant off-center strike, and a pristine uncirculated condition all at the same time, then the coin would effectively become unique in the world. And when something is truly unique, its value is determined not by price guides but by how much collectors are willing to pay to secure a once-in-a-lifetime treasure. And history has shown that rare coins with fascinating stories often command astonishing prices because they represent more than just metal and design. They represent a piece of historical mystery that connects collectors to the past in a tangible way. And the 1981 penny sits right on the edge of a major transformation in American coinage, which adds another layer of intrigue to its story, because it was one of the final years before the composition change that created the modern zinc-based pennies still used today. And coins from transitional periods are always closely studied by collectors because they sometimes reveal small production experiments, or rare die varieties that were never widely documented at the time, and when these discoveries happen decades later, they create excitement throughout the numismatic community as collectors share photographs, research mint records, and analyze the smallest details under magnification to understand exactly what happened during the coin's creation. And sometimes a discovery can start with something as simple as a collector noticing that a penny looks slightly different in color or weight compared to others from the same year, which leads to careful testing and expert verification that reveals a completely new variety previously unknown to the hobby. And moments like that are what make coin collecting such a thrilling pursuit, because the possibility of discovery is always present even in the most ordinary places. And many legendary coin finds have been made by people who were simply sorting through their spare change or opening rolls of coins from a bank, proving that valuable treasures do not always come from museums or auctions but can appear unexpectedly in everyday life. And this is why collectors around the world continue to examine pennies closely, especially those from years like 1981 that sit near important transitions in mint history, because the next great discovery might already exist quietly in someone